All right, guys. Last time we had watched the part one of the real life Squid Game. So right now we're gonna watch our part two. South Korea erased 4,000 people to host the Olympic Games. The first episode basically talked about it was basically like Squid Games where they were stealing all these kids and elderly and stuff and putting them through these like torturous games, cutting their hair all weird. And towards the end, we seem to have found out that it was because the Olympics were coming and they wanted to get all of like the riffraff or anyone that didn't look perfect like off the street so that like when other nations came uh it didn't look like a dirty place or whatever, especially like in the 80s because Korea wasn't the way it is now. So that's where it ended off. So this is part two now. Cool.
Is forced to sit on for hours.
Cool. We talking mango here? Oh, we talking mango out here, dude. Oh hell yeah, we are. I mean, no,
Bada bing, bada boo.
it's way too
It
loud.
is one of the biggest churches in the city of Busan in South Korea. Only nobody really knows.
Let me know how
it
the audio
exists.
is, guys.
It's in the middle of the woods. You have to be invited in to join the church, but it's also not a cult. This is not a cult story. The church has the capacity to seat 3,500 people, give or take. Sometimes it's 4,000. There are just what feels like an endless row upon row upon row of rock hard church pews. Every church member is forced to sit on for hours every single Sunday. The pews, the chairs, they're at a firm 90-degree angle, and because attendance is so high, you're arm to arm. In the summer, it feels like you and the person next to you are gonna fuse together in the flesh because the sweat, the moistness, just touching each other for hours at a time. Winter is not as bad, but every single Sunday, the inevitable moment comes, like every Sunday, the red sack people. The Pastor Lim at the podium, will ask the red sack members to come up. It looks like a row of red floating balls that just float onto the stage. But they're people. They're wearing red burlap sacks with ugly paint on the front. And the ugly...
It's so crazy that they have to wear the blue jumpsuits. It's literally Squid Game. There's no way like Squid Game wasn't. Like, I doubt Squid Game would ever like come out and like admit to it, but there's no way Squid Game is not inspired by this. It's like one for one, like a lot of it, you know. Especially like in the first episode, she was talking about all the different games they had to play, and like there were less games and more like saw traps almost than real games. But also, every episode we say it, but like Stephanie looks good today.
paint reads, "I am a sinner who has gone against God's word." Everyone in the church holds their breath as the pastor approaches the red sack people. His eyes look soft. They look sympathetic. He puts his hands on their heads and they bow down. The pastor closes his eyes. "In the name of Jesus, you are being punished." Then he moves to the next one. "In the name of Jesus, you are being punished." And then the next, one by one, he does this to all of them. "In the name of Jesus, you are being punished. In the name of Jesus, you are being punished." And then he turns around. The pastor does. And when he turns back to face the row of red sack wearing people, he has put on a pair of boxing gloves. And bam, he just starts
Irene Devil, thank you for the follow. Welcome to us here. And hi, Christine. Welcome in. I love this thing that she does where she starts off the video like she starts off the video as if Christine, thank you for the follow as well. Welcome to New York City. Bum, bum. I love the way she, well, again, tells a story, right? We all do. But I love how she starts the video always. It's like you're 45 minutes in, right? You're like, wait. At first, I'm always like, wait, did I miss something? And then you're like, have all these questions like, wait, why is this happening? What the hell? And then she goes back to the beginning and like gets you going, you know? And then you understand what I'm trying to say? It's great storytelling. It kind of tells you in the middle without giving anything away, but making you be like, wait, why? Like right now, I'm thinking like, wait, if this is about like beautifying South Korea, what does that got to do with, why are there priests involved? What does that got to do with anything? I don't understand. But, you know, was not expecting that following sound. Yeah, what you liked it, right? Welcome in. Hope you had a good day. I did have a good day. I appreciate you. I like the idea of the pastor just yelling, "Yeah, boy." That's fucked up. That's fucked.
pummeling them one by one to the ground. None of the thousands of people in this church look away. They're not allowed to. Their eyes are glued to the front. None of them stop the pastor. None of them scream. None of them shout. None of them do anything until these red sacks at the front are laying down horizontal on the ground, and now they're oozing red liquid. They're dead.
He punched them to death?
A lot of them get beaten to death. The church
Whoa.
members think, well, they're lucky if they're dead, you know? If they're dead, their bodies will be dragged off, probably to be sold. If not, they're going to repeat this again next week. This is not a cult.
Dead body
This
to be
is the
sold?
Brothers' Home, a government-funded camp to cleanse the humans of South Korea for the Olympics.
What are we watching? Ryan Mango video on the real life Squid Game. This is part 2. I have a YouTube video up if you want to watch part 1, but also if you want to just watch Rotten Mango's part 1, obviously. That option as well. As a Catholic and a believer in
We
God,
would
this
like
is
to thank today's
disgusting.
sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to directly support a survivor of today's episode.
The churches have
This
done a lot
episode's
of
partnerships
things.
have also made it possible to support Rotten Mango's growing team, and we'd also like to thank you guys for your continued
Dipper,
support as
thank
we
you
work
for the
on our
bits.
mission
I
to be worthy
appreciate you.
advocates. As always, full show notes are available at rottenmangopodcast.com.
Good night,
With that
Dipper.
being
Thank you.
said, today's case involves mentions of internment, essay, trafficking, and torture. Please take a break if it gets to be too much. This case is on the heavier side. But I also think it's very important. Another thing to note is that this is something that happens all across the world, like I said in the previous episode. And South Korea at the time that this took place was not a democracy. It was run by a dictator. So hopefully massive changes have been made. And additionally, our amazing Korean researchers and translators were actually able to travel to some of the survivors involved
amazing.
in today's case.
She said that last time. That's so
Conduct
cool.
in-person interviews.
That's so
They
cool.
translated the survivor's book, The Surviving Child, written by Han Jung-sun. He's a huge part of the case. I'm going to refer to him as Han. Additionally, this is a 3-part case. If you haven't watched part 1, please go watch that first. I'm going to link it because none of this is going to make sense. In part 1, we go through the torture games that were held at the Brothers' Home Welfare Center,
Literally
how
Squid
they
Game.
compare to Squid Games. And in this episode, we're going to go through what they do to the dead bodies, as well as the salt water, food torture, and what happens when you escape. In part 3, we will go in depth on the wealthy benefactors of this facility. So with that being said, let's get started.
Yeah, she mentioned last time something about like an adoption ring also. Your model looks very cool and pretty. Thank you. I have 2 quick notes I want to say. One, I'll ask you guys, I'll put a poll at something maybe or whatever, or just let me know, but do you guys always want to stick to these like dark ass Rotten Mango videos? Because people have been like suggesting like, hey, she has other channels that are like a little more lighthearted or like more fun drama and stuff like that, not just like the awful stuff. I like the awful stuff personally, but if we ever get too dark, she has other channels. I mean, we could also not have to watch her all the time, but I like Stephanie a lot. Number 2, church thing. I do think religions have done bad stuff in the past and still kind of do sometimes, but I do think that a big reason people are so depressed and so lost in life these days is because like the church, the power of the church went away in a way. Like people don't have a third space anymore. I feel like the community you used to get from like church and stuff was like a really big, and it gave you like meaning and things to do. And now everyone's like, well, come on, God's not real, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to listen to the funny man in the sky who hates gay people. Cool. You know what I mean? I'm in agreement, but now like people have lost that like third space and like sense of community. And I think it's like really like, it's really like, been part of like why people feel so like lost and aimless and not narcissistic. What's the fuck? Nihilistic. Like nothing matters. Whatever. Like I don't know. I'm a mixer of liking awful and good stuff. Yeah. I like the awful stuff as well. Okay, let's go. Anyway, quick notes.
In season 2 of Netflix's Squid Games, the main character, Ki-hoon, he just survived Squid Games. In season 1, he walks away with $40-something million. But he more or less, I mean, was it worth it? I don't really know. He more or less had to kill his childhood friend that dies in the games to win. And the minute he comes home, he finds out that his mom is dead as well. So for a year, he can't even touch the money that he won. The idea that he would have to use this blood money, it just reminds him of every single person, all 400-something people that died in the Squid Games. It doesn't even make sense. Couldn't he win all of this money without them dying? It's not like they died so that he could get the money. The money was already there. It doesn't connect. A year after his initial win, he finds out the truth. The games are created for rich people's entertainment, and this lights a fire underneath him. The logical thing for him to do is find closure, walk away. But instead, Ki-hun vows he is going to get revenge on the rich VIPs, and he's not going to stop. He is going to end these stupid games, even if it means losing every single penny that he had just won, and even losing his own life. The National Assembly building in South Korea is this massive stone structure. But the legislators, they show up, so do the administrative staff, personnel, researchers. They show up to work, and outside is usually a row of people, protesters. But this time is different, because a lot of people will protest different things at the National Assembly, but this group, they've been very serious. They've been living here for 3 years, living outside the National Assembly in tents. Sometimes they walk, sometimes they just hold a sign with tears streaming down their face. Sometimes they fast, and people have to beg them to eat because they're becoming emaciated. This time, they're sitting next to each other one by one, and they're all looking stoic.
Hi,
Not
Anarchist.
saying anything.
Welcome in.
Their eyes look like they're about to start crying. Some of them are already crying. There's just tears dropping everywhere, and they're all shaving their heads to get attention.
How many people in that group?
It's like a row of 10 almost. These are the victims of the brothers' home. They have been protesting for 3-something plus years. I mean, it's a long time. And it all started with one man, the man who wrote the book, Han. He tells the legislators, "I am a child who survived hell. You know, it's easy to go from human to beast, but very hard to return from beast to human." Which is why after he escaped Brothers Home,
That makes sense.
he wanted to kill people. He admits he thought becoming a serial killer was the only way that he could escape Brothers Home. He says, like a psychopath, after I left, I just wanted to kill everyone around me. I felt like it was the only way to get everyone to listen to my story. But then I thought, what about everybody else? Everybody already hates us. We were labeled as vagrants. People saw us as less than human even after we got out of Brothers Home.
That's crazy. So like after all that, you come out. It's not like victims of like an internment camp or something like that, or whatever, where it's like apologies and all this stuff. It's just like you're still pieces of shit because you were put there in the first place because you weren't like the high society. Anyone who wouldn't be pretty. This is episode 2 of the Brothers Home. It is Calgo. Welcome, by the way. Julie just asked, is it worth it to get lifelong trauma of seeing people die and then get money as a reminder of what you witnessed? Like, man, I mean, I would do it.
Why give them more reason to look down on us? So he said, I'll give it one shot. I will go to the National Assembly and I will protest and see what happens. Escaping the brothers' home compound is nearly impossible. In part 1, we talked about how the walls are 30 feet tall. I mean, even if you somehow manage to Spider-Man climb the structure, they put, in certain parts of the wall, glass shards on top. One attempted escapee, Lee, he says he made it up the wall. He climbed it. And when he reached the top, he had cut up his hands and legs so badly he was caught. He says, I was dripping in blood. I couldn't walk. So I was dragged across the concrete, leaving these blood stains, sent back to the office. I was beaten by the guards. Everybody took turns hitting me. I was beat probably 100 times in that moment. Then he was taken to the church to repent for his sins. He had to put on that red sack. And from there, the pastor would pummel him in front of everyone to show everybody this is exactly what happens when you try to escape from Brothers Home.
So I want to know what
Pastor, is that the same guy as that head dude in charge, or it's a
No?
why religion is involved.
but he's another
Oh, this is the
top
guy?
Yes.
person?
This
Their
fat.
family. In the end of part 1, 12-year-old Jung, do you remember him? His dad is the toilet paper salesman.
Yes.
He's trapped in Brothers Home for 2 years, and the only thing keeping him alive is the thought that his dad is going to come and save him. Years later, his dad shows up at Brothers Home, but instead of being
Yeah,
there to
he's
take him
one of
out,
them.
rescue him, Jung's
I
dad
remember
is
that.
standing there wearing a blue tracksuit.
Ugh.
It's very interesting because Squid Game, even the actual show, has a lot of interesting components, like the fact that there's so many familial dynamics at play in season 2. I would say these are not really spoilers because season 2 is connected to season 3, so we don't really know what happens even. But if you're adverse to any type of spoiler, please be warned. So for example, in the new round of Squid Games, there's a mother and son duo. The two of them, they meet in the games. Neither knew that
they
the other
didn't
party was
know.
going to show up. They
Okay.
have no
I
idea.
didn't watch it,
They
so.
get there, they enter the games, and both of them are there to win the money so that they could pay off the son's gambling debt. Without giving any spoilers, I mean, how is that going to play out? We don't know because, like I said, season 3 is coming. If it
Bro's literally talking about Brothers Home and how bad it is. Parody, man, he's fat. Because fuck him, dude. He's a piece of shit. That's why. Not just some random person, but I'm like, look at this fat fuck, like beating kids and stuff like that. That's why I said it. Not just because he's fat.
It's just like the first games. There's only one standing. It can't be both the mother and the son. If there's an unspoken familial bond, that would indicate
One of them
that
are
it
going
has to be
down.
the son, right? Because he's younger. And mothers likely have that innate desire to protect their own children. Or I wonder if it's a question of, are humans just humans at the end of the day? Like when it really comes down to it, survival instincts kick in regardless of who birthed you. And it's about surviving in the end. For example, the recruiter, remember the guy in the suit
The hot
that works
guy.
for the games? His
Yeah.
whole job is to go around, approach people at subway stations. He knows they have debt. He's the one that scouts the potential candidates for the game, invites them in. He thinks all these recruits are beneath humans. He thinks they're subhumans. He believes genuinely that he is doing the world a favor by getting rid of them. He used to be a pink suit wearing guard inside of Squid Games, and he tells the main character in season 2, clearing and incinerating the bodies of countless people like you. These things aren't human, they're just trashed. They have no purpose in this world. That's what I kept telling myself for years. And I worked hard, and one day, the game makers, they gave me a gun. I liked the way it felt. It was like somebody had finally acknowledged my existence.
Give him a gun.
One year there was a man who lost, and I went over to shoot him, but I recognized his face. Can you guess who it was?
His friend.
My dad.
Oh.
And he still shot him. He killed his own dad.
Holy shit.
Why?
That's what happens in the games. Kill or be killed. And also, I guess maybe he thinks these humans are so subhuman and he has resentment towards his dad. 12-year-old Jung in Brother's home
Whoa. God damn. I got nothing on that one. Holy shit.
standing in the middle of the field and he's staring at his dad wearing that blue tracksuit. Jung's dad actually looks worse than Jung. He's lost so much weight, it's like someone just draped a blue tracksuit on top of a thin wire hanger. He can't even fit the smallest size. Jung says he looked terrible, just skin and bones. It's a complicated feeling. Are you happy to see the person that you have been praying to see for years, or do you feel sad and miserable and depressed that they're going to share the same fate as you and that nobody can save either of you? Jung says it's even more complicated because you have this weird shame component. He says, I didn't even want to meet my dad's eyes in there because I thought, wouldn't my father be ashamed to see me right now? It just was such a strange feeling. A few days pass since Jung first sees his dad. Anytime all the prisoners are gathered in the courtyard, he keeps his head down so his dad
They
doesn't
haven't
see
even
him.
spoken yet.
And then one day he
That's
hears
so
a familiar
crazy.
voice. Jung, are you eating well?
Fuck.
It's his dad. His dad is looking around nervously and he's just glancing from side to side. And finally he reaches into his pocket and pushes a package into Jung's hands. It's a rice cake. It's a hardened rice cake. During the holidays, each prisoner receives one rice cake. It's just a small square of rice cake. He had been carrying the rice cake for days, not knowing when he would run into his son. He starved so that his son could get an extra bite.
And he knew his son was there the
Jung
whole time
breaks
then.
down when he's telling interviewers about this moment later on because he said, I was 14 at the time. I was so hungry. I ate the rice cake. I ate it all as soon as I got it. But afterwards, I just thought, I'm so immature. I mean, thinking about it now, how my father must have felt when he saw me, when he met me from his perspective, what he did to give me that rice cake, seeing me there, I mean, I think I was just too immature. Turns out, after Jung disappeared, Jung's dad spent a year searching for him, going everywhere, going to all the train stations, trying to figure out where the hell is my 12-year-old son? He would never run away like the police are claiming, so something's not right here. Also, the police, they're not telling him that his son has been taken into Brother's home. They're just saying, oh, I don't know, maybe he ran away. Who cares about your son?
I mean, police.
Or the one that took him in.
Yeah, they're the one that kidnapped.
They
Right.
don't even tell him. Because they get bonus points from the government. This is just going to cause more trouble. So they don't like
That
it. They
is
don't want to tell him.
crazy. So they kidnap the kids, and then the parents come in saying, "Oh, my kid is missing," and they're
Yes.
saying, "Oh, okay."
Oh, yeah, well,
You know,
yeah, he
Meanwhile,
ran
they're the
away.
one that took them.
Yes.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Jung's dad spends a year searching for him. No.
I swear to God, we're all fucking Stephanie's husband, dude. I swear. I swear we're all Stephanie's. I like that. Like, she doesn't seem to tell him the stories first. So, like, he's hearing it for the first time, like we are. Welcome back from Ad Job, by the way.
Oh, help. No hope from the police or neighbors. So he resorts to trying to drown out his sorrows in alcohol. One day, Jung Sr. gets so upset that he's drinking. I mean, sure, he's not the mayor of Busan, but he's thinking my son was a straight A student. He meant something to the world. He could have been someone. He meant something to me. Isn't that all that matters? But the police,
think so.
who are they? You know, who they're here to serve the people, and they're treating him like dog poop stuck on their shoe. He walks over to the police station, not to start a fight or to be violent, just to protest, a one-man protest. Just help me find my son. Where is my son? You must help me. The police take one look at him, and they smell the alcohol in his breath.
Oh, he's
And they
done.
think, what a vagrant.
Yep.
Take him in.
Fuck.
Wow. He walked into a police station.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Jung was in there since he was 12 till he was nearly 15. He says, I strongly resisted the essays at the time that were happening every single night to others, but because of that, I was beaten even more. It's a different humiliation that's different from just being beat. Even now, the shock is
Bootsy man, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. Welcome in New York City. I forgot how I say hi. But yeah, welcome in. He always asks the important questions. He does. I'm telling you, he's us, man. He's us. So I love the way that they do that.
I just knew I had to escape that hell. He's out in the courtyard one day, and his eyes are glazed over, just trying not to get burnt by the sun, which is really hard. Okay, so they're saying in the summers, even in the winters, it's really difficult because if you listen to part 1, they're only allowed to wash their face with coarse salt grains. It rips your
remember that.
flesh. It makes it raw in the sun. And then you're getting punched in the face by these guards every day. And now you have no moisturizer, nothing. You're just in the glare of the sun. He's squinting and he looks up and his heart starts pounding. He notices all the guards are busy. And there's been this one building he's always looked at, because if you were to get to the roof of that building, it's tall enough that you could potentially jump onto the ledge of the wall that's blocking them.
Like the 30 feet wall?
Yes. If you climb to the top of that building, the gap between the wall and that building are not that much, and it's about the same height, the roof and the upper ledge of the wall. So he takes the chance. He says, I ran like lightning to the building's roof. He jumps from the roof, knowing that he could very well land on the floor and die, or worse, survive only to be beaten to death, okay?
Right.
But he jumps, lands on the ledge of the wall, scrapes himself from all the blood. He drops down from the wall on the other side. It's not nearly as high because it's built on a hill. He jumps down and just starts booking it. There's no looking back. He's sprinting through the woods, scraping his face. He can't even keep his eyes fully open because the branches are slamming into him and he doesn't want to slow down. He's just running. The next thing he knows, there's this massive barbed wire fence in front of him. What the hell is this? Some sort of secondary blockade? He doesn't even know how long he's been running. He just starts, without even thinking, climbing up the barbed wired fence, breaking the skin all over his hands, face, body. It's like going through a paper shredder. But he said he didn't even feel pain in the moment. The only thought being, I have to escape this
adrenaline.
hell no matter
Yeah.
what. There is no other way. I have to escape this hell. He drops down on the other side. He made it. This is freedom. He made it past the walls. And then click. It's the sound of a gun right behind him. Put your hands up and don't move. He raises his bloody hands in the air and turns around. It's a uniformed man holding a gun up to him. He's not wearing a blue tracksuit. He's wearing a military outfit. A soldier. Jung had been so desperate, honestly, nobody knows how long he ran for. He doesn't even remember. But he ran for so long, he ran directly into a military base. Sneaking into a military base, to him, still can't be worse than being stuck at brother's home, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's what he thinks. He begs them to save him because all the other people that make it past the walls, if you're wearing the blue tracksuit, you're just brought immediately back in. You're seen almost like an escaped prisoner. And he begs the soldiers to save him, or better yet, don't save me. Don't do anything. Just let me go. I won't tell anyone. The soldiers load him up to a car, and he's just begging, please, sir, help me. Please, sir, help me. The door to the soldier's car opens. They throw him out, and then they throw something into his hands. It's a big loaf of bread.
Wait, they
He's
actually helped
standing
him.
on the road on the street. He's not back at brother's home. He's free. With
Holy
that, the car
shit.
just drives off.
Wow.
And they fed him.
So they kind of saved him?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. They could have sent
Wow.
him back. I don't think that they knew anything of the true torture of what was going on at Brother's home, but they had a lot more mercy than the guards at Brother's home, clearly.
Yeah, I was thinking the place was like surrounded by a military base for like this exact reason. But wow, I love rhyming a podcast. Yeah, we do here too as well. Yeah, you're in the right place then for sure. It's humid there. You'd sweat into those cuts. Yeah, man, it's no joke. Adrenaline's a powerful numbing drug. We were watching like cartel videos that she did last time, and I remember seeing my own cartel videos where like they would pump people full of adrenaline while torturing them, so they couldn't like pass out from the pain. It's no joke. That is mercy compared to Brother's Home. Oh, it's beyond mercy. Yeah, they. To me, mercy would have been shooting him in the head instead of fucking sending him back. That would be mercy for me personally. But letting him go free and giving him the bread. You need to take that fucking jumpsuit off, but you probably are naked under it. So now you're just running around in this bright blue jumpsuit, which is not much better. I mean, it's not going to be easy to get away though. So hopefully, well, we'll see.
They just thought if this guy doesn't want to go back that much, that he's begging and crying
be a
and
reason.
willing to climb over a barbed wire fence,
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't want to go back.
Yeah.
It's an even more complicated feeling though, because at first Jung said it feels very surreal. He escaped, he's free. But then he starts panicking. His dad is still there. But he also starts panicking more because he realizes, what is he going to do? Call the cops and tell them that his
Right,
dad
they're
is
the
in
ones
Brother's
who
home? It's not
fucking
like he can
did
tell the
it.
police. The police are the one that took them in.
Yep.
There's nobody that he can trust. He was only ever taught, ever since he was a little kid, hey, when you're in danger,
That's true. He was
report
just a
it to the
kid,
police
yeah.
station and ask the police for help. Now what? Jung decides if he's going to get his dad out, he still has to try and survive until then. He finds, ironically, a newspaper distribution center. He starts working there, sleeping there, eating there, and then one day the cops barge in and they take him in. They arrest him.
Why?
One of the neighbors reported a vagrant was living at the distribution center.
What?
They arrested him for being a vagrant. And just like in season 2 of Squid Games, just like Ki-hoon, the main character,
He's right
when
back.
Jung opens his eyes, he's back in a blue tracksuit in a
Jesus
bunk bed
Christ.
at the brother's home.
You are kidding me.
Yeah.
How long was he out?
A few months. But he's
Months.
a lot more bloodier now from all the beatings from running away. He said in that moment, he realized, I'm never going to get out of here. I'm never going to get out of here, at least alive. Another survivor says, as you keep getting beaten up, you know, you just give up. The end of all this waiting, you think you're waiting to escape.
That's the
end of all of
point.
it is
It's to
just
break
death.
everybody's
There's nothing
wills.
to wait for except the day that you die.
Jesus
Nobody's coming
Christ.
to save you.
Wait, so this was okay. They started this whole initiative for the Olympic, right?
Beautiful.
It was
It's
prior
so
to the
dumb.
Olympics, but they amped it up, and the government started pouring more money into these welfare centers prior to the Olympics. But the
Right.
initiative started years before.
Years before.
Yes.
Okay.
So meanwhile, when this happened, like it's what like 3 years into this.
Yes.
Has the Olympics started yet or after? Like the,
Oh, it's after. I mean, even after, they're still taking people.
Oh, this is post Olympics already.
Oh, so now it's like they don't need to like
No.
put on anything for the tourism. They're still taking people from the street.
Yes.
Good question as always,
Wow,
dude.
okay.
Han and his older sister, the one
Wow. Yeah, people say he's just around to say bada bing, bada boom or whatever in the beginning, but like, no, he's really good. He asks a lot of good questions. Right. It was posed as like, oh, for the beautification to make Korea look good during the Olympics, but now it's still happening. So like, why? Why?
who wrote the book, Han, they're dragged to the police station by their dad. Their dad's always been very irresponsible when he's drunk, but it never was like this bad. There were beatings here and there, but this felt very different. He drags them to the police station. Stay here, Dad will be back. In theory, this is the best place for their dad to leave them. In reality, this is the worst place for their dad to leave them. Because remember, the police are the ones taking them in. Han is 9. He says, my dad told us to wait at the police station for him. He promised he would come back and get us. The police
What?
don't care.
Why did the dad left him there?
It's unclear if he was trying to abandon his kids because it was too much responsibility, or whether he was in some sort of trouble and he wouldn't be home for a few days, and it'd be better to leave his kids at a police station than to leave them alone.
So the father doesn't know.
He has no clue that Brother's home is a torturous place, or that they're even going to get sent to Brother's home. He thinks they're going to be there when he gets back.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, the Korean police stations are a little bit different. So in Korea, there's even things like police boxes. It's like a little box. Police officers are stationed in neighborhoods and they're part of the community. You don't really see them as like a cop.
Yeah, like a security. You can
Yes,
talk to them.
Okay.
So it's a little more communal. And he thought, okay, they'll be here when I get back if I do decide to come back for them. The police don't care. They throw the two, Han and his sister, into the back of the refrigerated windowless van. They drive them to brother's home.
Wait, so Han has a sister, older or younger?
Older sister. She's 12, he's 9.
Okay.
And in the van, Han says, I started crying. I was asking to be let out and to be able to go home. For a moment, I remember the sky turning completely white. I heard a noise like cicadas were embedded, stuck inside my ears. And then the stars were going around my eyes. And then once that gradually faded, I realized that man just slapped me so hard, I almost lost consciousness.
Jeez.
I looked around the van. Only then did I realize there were about 5 other kids our age in the car, besides the stranger.
As I said before, all you saw was eyes. It was so dark in there. They weren't even sure there was other kids in there. They mentioned that last time too. How is it unclear for a drunk, abusive father leaving them somewhere and saying, I'll be back, and then dipping without another word? That's abandoning. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to argue with you. Yeah.
And that's how I ended up at brother's home. Han, just like the others, he has to go through all the survival games, which consist of very creative ways to just torture everyone in blue tracksuits. The guards just torture thousands of people. And like I said, some of them are as young as 4. Some of them are elderly people. The torture is non-discriminatory. Everybody's getting tortured. And the torture doesn't even end with the twisted activities. This whole place is almost manufactured to make every aspect of the day feel like walking on glass shards that have been heated to be 100 degrees. There are 2 time slots for food for the day. Designated time slots. There is exactly 30 minutes to eat, which sounds like more than enough time until you realize there's 3,500 people who have 30 minutes to eat. Everyone only has about 3.5 minutes to grab their food, sit down, inhale it before getting up for the next people to sit down. You always hear, first X number of people, go, go, go. People are getting smacked and beaten up if they're not eating fast enough. The first few meal times are said to be the hardest because it's hard to even swallow the food that they're giving you, let alone do it in 3.5 minutes, just shoveling it in. You would spend at least the greater chunk of that time just gagging. The food is almost always the same. It's rotten rice. So the rice, they leave it in these damp containers and they become moldy, and there's those rice bugs everywhere. They don't rinse the rice. They don't get rid of the bugs. They just steam it just like that. Fermented fish, but the fish is always rotten and it's fermented without seasonings. There's fermented cabbage, but there's no red pepper flakes to make the kimchi, so it's just salt sprinkled kimchi, diced radish kimchi. There would be some soup on some days, but it would just be water with nasty oil floating around and then little radishes just floating around. It is not only a nutritionless meal, every single ingredient is moldy, spoiled, and to the point that it was almost decaying. And they just slop it all together in water, cook it into a fermented rotten stew, and serve it with rotten, molded, unwashed rice steamed to food poisoning perfection. Even if you can stand the taste and digestion of the decaying food, there's still not enough food given to you to fill your stomach. Everyone in there is starving at all times of the day. Everybody is malnourished. And that's when you find out things that you never really think you would ever find out. Han says he has a lot of knowledge that most people probably don't have. For example, if you eat too many pine cones or pine needles, you get diarrhea and you're going to vomit for days.
Yeah, that's something you would never. That's definitely something you would never fucking know unless you put through that. Jesus Christ. No wonder they're gagging. The smell must have been awful. It had to have been. Can you imagine? Yeah, it's literally killing them with food. Oh, 100%. Oh, 100%. So you either starve to death or they have to eat food that's going to make them sick anyway.
He
Jesus.
says, well, you can pick the pine cones, peel off the outer layer with your teeth, and then chew on the white part inside, kind of like an artichoke. You can't really swallow it, but you can at least feel like you're eating something.
I do like an artichoke.
Or if you have the chance, you can catch and eat centipedes. It will feel like the most nutrient-dense meal at the brother's home.
It's a lot of protein. Another one she mentioned the last one was that like they learned that like because what do they get, like newspaper to like wipe themselves with, like for the bathroom. And they learned that like if you rub the newspaper for a long time, it becomes soft, and then you can kind of use it like toilet paper. Just like bad things you do learn when like trying to survive.
Hard to say which part of that is worse. Is it the torture games? Is it the food? Or is it that nonstop itch that you feel on every part of your body that makes you want to scrape your skin off, but you can't because the minute that your skin breaks, there's just pus oozing out. Almost every single person in Brother's home has a severe skin disease. Most of them have severe eczema and their skin is just raw. It's throbbing. It feels like there's a heartbeat under every part of their skin. Every single day, without fail, regardless, it feels like their skin is about to slop off. They're forced to scrub themselves on this sensitive skin with coarse salt. During the winter, the ice cold water combined with the salt is so unbearable, everyone avoids washing at all. Han writes in his book, many of us had skin diseases because we also shared blankets. And, hygiene was poor. Everybody's skin was always leaking pus and blood. And it's now being rubbed all over everybody else under the blankets and the shavings. And at night, when you think, okay, maybe I'm getting used to the itch of this eczema itch and
No, it's impossible.
these dry, open, raw wounds scraped with salt, just when you think you're used to it, at night, there's you hear a lot of smacking sounds in Brother's home at night. They're light smacking sounds because you can't be too loud. A slap helps more than a scratch. Maybe it's in your head because you think the lice are dying from each smack. It's the intense, inescapable itch of pubic lice. Even if you think the itch is bearable, it's the type of crawling sensation down there that makes you feel like there are 1,000 little bugs crawling over you. It feels like they're trying to crawl inside of you.
Yeah.
Lice. The only chance of getting rid of the lice is once a week, you get a hot water bath for 2 seconds.
That's not gonna do it, yeah.
It's the only time to try and get rid of all the foreign friends.
Dude, I remember I'm thinking like, you ever have sunburn, like really bad sunburn, and you can't sleep because like it just randomly itches like here and there, like throughout the night. And that's like nothing compared to like actual bugs. That is like the worst fucking. It happened to me when I was on a cruise last year. I got bad sunburn, and I just like, it's not a constant inch, but every so often it's like a pinch, and it just like you can never sleep with it. You know what I'm talking about? Not a good comparison, I guess. But I'm just trying to like compare it. Like I know how bad that sucked, and that was like a little bit of sunburn, not actual bugs. And I looked it up, but eating large amounts of moldy food can actually kill you. So of course it can. So that means that people could have straight up died from eating moldy, rotten food for how long they have. Yeah, and they don't really give a fuck. I'm almost more surprised that they're keeping these people in camps rather than just killing them. You know, it would cost less money and less time. So, like, again, what's the end game here, right? Because why not just exterminate them? Which is horrible to say, but you know what I'm saying. Why just put them to torture? I wondered, like, what? I used to get random hives when trying to sleep when I was doing chemo. It made sleep impossible. Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like. I'm surprised no one had scabies. Oh, I'm sure there's scabies going around. She just didn't say it. I'm sure there is.
It also doesn't help that you only have 2 pairs of clothes. The 2 blue tracksuits, which, by the way, they're so crazy about everyone being uniform. A lot of people say it felt like North Korea in there because it doesn't even make sense why the uniformity was so important.
Yeah.
Even if the zipper is broken and can't be zipped up, if the uniform requires it to be zipped up, you have to find a way to get it to stay closed. Otherwise, you will be beaten to death. 600 people died in here, at least. Han says it doesn't matter.
Surprised
if
it's
your
not
pants
more.
the waistband stretches out, you have to find a way to tie it with no supplies. Because, yeah, your pants falling down, sure, in front of 4,000 people, it's a little embarrassing, but you're going to get beaten. Everyone's fingernails look like they've been gnawed off by rats.
I need you to put on eye tracking for this. Are you just staring at her? She's very pretty. What am I supposed to look at? Miak, what? Hi, Joni, by the way. What do you want me to say? What am I supposed to do, like this? Oh, wow, good video. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's terrible. Where else are you supposed to look, Miyaki? I wonder your thoughts on what she's saying. I give them. Yeah, look at her. Do you blame me? She's distracting. Yeah, bad take, Miyaki. Bad take.
Always trimmed
El
incredibly
Miyaki,
short.
guys.
There are only 5 nail clippers for the whole place. But if you have long nails, you get beat. So everybody just chews off their nails.
Whoa.
But there's no money in the torture itself, because that's what doesn't make sense.
That's what I just
Who
said.
is funding the brothers' home? Why does
That's what I said, Miyaki. You like my commentary? That's what I said.
it exist? So if the government funds brothers' home and every quote unquote vagrant that gets brought in, there's government subsidies. The people who run brothers' home, they get paid per person per day. But that's not where the real money is. So a few years ago, there was a story that a good chunk of the prison population in China don't have fingernails.
You're talking about today?
Yes.
Oh.
You know,
Don't
it's
have
like a whole thing.
fingernails.
Everyone's like, where are their fingernails going? Are they chewing them off? Are they being ripped off? Like, why don't they have fingernails? Are there certain conditions inside the prisons where their
They don't
fingernails
grow?
just fall off? What's
Right.
going on? They do some investigating. And a lot of the American consumption of pre-peeled garlic is peeled in Chinese prisons. So a lot of these people, they would say, you try to, because you have to meet a quota every single month. You have to peel enough garlic slices. And garlic has certain compounds where if you keep peeling them, your fingernails pop off.
What?
Okay.
I
And
didn't
it's
know
not
that.
just China, but incarcerated workers produce over $2 billion worth of goods annually. Even in the US, about 2/3 of the prison population work. And a lot of them, for some weird reason, are in the food industry. The prison complex and the agricultural business are like hand in hand.
So they're working, you're saying?
Yes. And they're getting paid like 20 cents a day.
Are you talking about brothers' home? Or
Yes, everywhere. So in US
yeah.
prisons, they're working. In prisons across the world, they're working. And then
Yeah.
in Brothers' Home is this crazy trickle of money. The facility gets paid by the government just for housing the vagrants. But Brothers' Home is like, why don't we make more money? Because what are they doing all day?
It doesn't grow back. I mean, if you had to do it every day, it would never have a chance to grow back, right? Enjoy your lurk cake.
That we have laying around. Let's have them work. Toys, children's toys, stationery, baby shoes, toothpicks. That's what they're making. Never ending cycle.
Right, so
One
it's slave
survivor
labor,
says,
yeah.
if the overall production target wasn't met,
Jesus.
they would stop all the work. They would send the workers out into the field and they would beat us one by one mercilessly.
At least real
with these
prisoners get
giant
paid a little
pliers and
bit.
hammers
At least
on
for
the
food
inner
and
thighs.
side.
Your inner thighs would be all bruised, and my only thought at work
Inner
was,
thighs.
I must not get hit. The worst part was a lot of the kids worked in fishing hook factories. They have to make fishing hooks.
Where'd that random blonde kid come from? They got one whitey in there? Self-insert character.
A lot of the kids worked in fishing hook factories. They have to make fishing hooks.
so these factories, is that what those 60 buildings are?
Yes.
Just different factories.
Different factories and different warehouses to house these people. They have a church on the premises. They have a medical unit, which just consists of they rip you open and pour salt into your wound and rub it around. They have a psych ward. The government wants to get paid for these
Yeah,
people,
I'm sure
but
that's
you
a good
can't
sign,
beat
yeah.
them into submission. A lot of them have really lost their minds in there.
진짜 정신병자 정신병자가 되게
I ended up becoming a real psychotic patient.
So they just throw them into the psych ward where they drug them nonstop and they just
Yeah,
get
maybe I'll buy
busted
now. I'll
and
buy now.
abused.
Do you know if this facility is still around today or they've...
No, it has been replaced by apartment buildings.
Wow.
Yes, because back then Busan was not as it wasn't that big of a city. I mean, it was, but it wasn't what it is now.
Wow.
Yeah. So the worst for the children, though, is this one factory where you make fishing hooks. They say when you work that quickly making fishing hooks, the
You
hook
gotta
gets
stab
stuck
yourself.
under the
Yeah,
fingernails.
of course. Yeah.
And the purpose of a fishing hook is not release whatever it's latched onto.
Yeah.
So when you work quickly, the hooks get stuck, and
Yep.
when you pull it out, your nail gets pulled out as well.
Oh,
You have to tear the flesh to get them out. They say you rip off your own fingernails to get the hooks out because you can't work and produce when you have fishing hooks stuck
right.
on
It's
your
easier
fingernails.
not to have the nails.
There's not even time to think about what you're doing. It's just constant thoughts of, if I don't do this, the beating is going to be worse than this.
Right. It's easier just to
They
not to
keep
have the
working
nails.
faster and faster. One survivor says, the day starts at 5. We make our beds. We have to do that in 5 seconds, very quickly, like the military. If not, you're going to get beaten by the guard the first thing in the morning. Then they do roll call. Then you go outside. Then you do the washroom with just salt. 3 seconds of water, salt for face wash, salt as toothpaste. Then you have to sing the military anthem. And one of the survivors says, I don't understand the point in that. If we were not in sync, we were beat. It just didn't
It's
make
just
any
about
sense what
control.
the point was.
It's just
not
about
even a real military.
beating them down.
Then they would be sent off to the factories.
Make them comply.
A survivor states they forced people to work in factories to produce products, and then those products would be sold to the public. The facility pocketed money from the products as well as benefiting from the free labor, as well as getting paid government subsidies. Another survivor states, after all of that, 14 and 15-year-olds were forced to carry sacks that weighed 60 pounds back and forth for construction to happen. All those buildings
they're building it too, huh?
were built by them.
Wow.
It was
They're building their own prison.
The children were unable to keep up, they would get beat.
Think about
so
that.
the kids avoid getting beat. They're forced to work harder. The survival instinct would kick in, and it was astonishingly painful. They were forced to build the wall even that held them prisoner, the giant 30-foot wall that made it nearly impossible to escape. They were forced to build it. They say, to build this wall, you have to carry up stones. One of the adults in front of me became exhausted and sat down for a moment to rest. The guard on site smashed the man's head with a wooden bat, and he died on the spot. Yeah, that was the first death that this survivor witnessed. It wouldn't be the last. But because it was the first, he said he was so consumed with fear he couldn't eat or sleep for the next few days. And in Squid Games, there's this subplot. I'm sure you guys have all watched season 1, and even if you haven't watched season 2, the subplot is continuing. We don't really know how it's going to resolve yet, so I don't know if this is a spoiler, but there is a subplot of the guards, the pink uniform wearing guards in Squid Games. They will take the bodies that they've shot down, the losers of the game, if you will, and they're supposed to shoot them dead. But instead of killing them, they immobilize them. Then they take them into this little bunker where a doctor shows up to try and sell the organs, take out the organs. It's very fascinating, the levels of profit. So the VIP clients, they get their entertainment out of these people dying, out of watching them kill each other for survival and for money. That's their entertainment. To the guards that are one step above the contestants, they take advantage of the contestants by, in death, selling their organs and profiting. The same goes for Brothers Home.
Right, that's my question. Why are they so evil? Like,
yes.
you don't, yeah, okay.
The facility will continue to profit even if the victims die. One survivor whose sole job was to clean up messes, particularly the messes of people who were escaped, recaptured, and beaten. He says, my job was to clean up after them. But how? How do I clean it up? Wiping away the bloodstains, cleaning up the aftermath. I mean, I saw people all laying there on the floor with their eyes wide open. They were dead. The total number of people that died is said to be around 551, but it's likely that the numbers are far higher than that.
Yeah, there's no way.
One survivor
That's
says,
what's reported.
there are so many graves there. If you look behind the church where the weeds grow thick, some days you would see mounds being made, just so many.
There's
like a bathhouse there. Right in front of it is this incinerator. A lot of bones would come out of that incinerator. I remember a man named Kim. He was quite old at the time. This is a direct quote. He was carried into a secret guidance room. That's what they called it. That's where they would beat us into guidance, to listening to the guards better, not trying to escape. He was forced into that room and carried out. I watched. He was dead. He died from beating, but I was told everyone would just report it as some sort of natural illness as his cause of death, and that sometimes, if the beating scars aren't that bad, they would sell them for medical studies. They would body farm.
Yeah.
They would sell the bodies.
Just like Squid Game.
Yes. One survivor states, yeah, I mean, if the bodies weren't needed, the guards would carry it up to the church at dawn and to the mass graves. One victim states, people were starved, beaten, and killed, and their deaths were never reported. They just buried them or sold them. All the kids are freezing. That's like a huge thing. All the survivors mention over and over again, you don't understand the winters in this place. You don't understand how cold it gets when there's snow falling everywhere and you're shivering to the bone. Your lips are constantly bleeding because you're so dry. It is miserable. Some people had frostbitten toes that had to be amputated. And then what do they do after they amputate it? They just rub salt on it. They said it's that bad underneath the facility.
Kitsune Venus, thank you for the follow. Welcome to New York City.
There's this little warehouse, storage room, and it's
Welcome in, welcome in.
filled to the brim with clothes.
Like uniforms? Or, oh,
Better clothes.
they're making.
No.
What?
Okay, so remember how I said this is not a cult story? So why do they have this giant church? Is it just because one of the leaders, like one of the facility owners, is religious? No, because religion is used to reel in donations for Brothers Home. From the outside, Brothers Home is a very legitimate welfare center. They're actually the biggest welfare center that is funded by the government. And now they're going to ask for donations from people around the world. The director of Brothers Home was
See, remember I asked, I was like, how do people, what do the outsiders think is going on there? I think if you guys watched the last stream or the watch YouTube video, yeah, I said the same thing. Like, okay, but like, what does the town think? Like this whole big infrastructure in the middle of the town, like, what do they think is going on there? And they're posing it as like this big positive thing they're doing. That's as if it wasn't already fucked up enough, but Jesus Christ.
smart. He did not care for Jesus, not even one bit. He's not a religious man. But Survivor said they used religion to add more money to their business. If there's no religion involved in their center, who would donate money? It's a government-funded facility. But you tell people, I'm Christian. I'm a Christian doing good things. I need donation money. Donation money from foreigners would flood in. They would donate just cases of clothes. And the kids were forced to write thank you notes to all the donors because you need it in childish handwriting.
Right.
This is crazy.
Sometimes they would have American donors stop by that work with like adoption agencies in America or even big churches in America.
Not
They would
us.
fly to Korea to visit Brothers Home. And everyone would prepare for months. The kids would put on plays. They would dance around. They'd
No
be forced to do all
way.
these things. And then once they leave, they have to give everything back.
Wow.
The basement would be filled with those donated clothes and they would sell them. Another layer of profit.
Jesus, they're
Sold
making
to
money
the
on
local
every
producers.
end.
This one odd time, a bunch of donors donated a bunch of cattle to be used for consumption. And Han said they took the cow and paraded it around the field, taking pictures with all of us, smiling with the cow, and showed it off. And everybody was so happy, thinking we would get beef bone soup or something the next day. And the next day, it was just rotten oil broth. No beef. They took the cows to the market to be sold. But the worst part for 9-year-old Han is not even the fact that he's not drinking beef bone soup. It's the fact that he was taken with his 12-year-old sister, and his older sister keeps trying to escape with him. Every single time she stands in the field, she would sprint towards him, ready to escape with him. But she has no plan. She has no plan. She would just try to grab his hand and say, I'm going to protect you. Let's go. We're going to go home.
Where are they going?
And every time she would get slammed down onto the ground and beaten in front of Han.
Jesus.
He says the beatings, torture, and punishments, it wouldn't stop her from getting to me. Han says about his sister, my older sister was especially smart. So our researchers actually met Han and his older sister.
Wow.
They left like a video message for us as well, but he says his older sister is especially smart and capable, which our researchers actually noted, and we'll talk
Yeah,
about that
9
in
years
part
old.
3. She's like the only blood relative that taught Han anything, because they're poor village kids. He doesn't know how to write. She would teach him. And then on their way home one day, this is when they were free, he saw this 달고나 cart. Oh, it's just all full circle. Okay, he sees this 달고나 cart, the candy cart. And he's like, sister, can I get a 달고나? And she doesn't have money. So she says, you know what? I'm going to go home and I'm going to make it for you. He says, my sister put a ladle on the briquette stove. It was her first time doing this. She poured in sugar, added a little bit of soda, and she was about to complete the 달고나 with the chopsticks when I kept pushing on her and like dragging her shirt saying, can you hurry? I really want 달고나. And she dropped the ladle. It fell all over her foot. She has a severe burn because the sugar crystallizes and it sticks to you.
Right. It's like
all over her
napalm.
foot. He says, I still remember that incident. And when their dad, who both of them thought was very scary, he would come home and ask, Shine, what happened to your foot? And she would quickly respond, I dropped a pot while I was making soup. Don't worry about it. Han says his sister was always somebody that protected him. And even now, she keeps trying to protect him by having them escape. But all that's happening is she keeps getting beat over and over again. She would run to him in the cafeteria trying to hug him. Father's going to come find us, okay? Don't be scared. Father's going to come find us. He says, you can't imagine how difficult it was to look at each other in that atmosphere of fear. Rather than being a source of support or comfort for each other, it just became more painful. I lived witnessing my sister gradually losing her mind. Okay, so in the book, it's very explicit, but I think he would rather it not be explicit. So Han mentions that people from his sister's platoon would come to him and report back the types of torture that were inflicted on her because she tried to save her brother. And the types of torture, you can imagine what they are,
Right.
especially being a woman in a facility like this.
Yep.
In some sick, twisted way, some of the kids would even taunt him about it. He said, I lived witnessing my sister gradually losing her mind. First, it was just this panic of, we got to get out of here. I'm going to help us escape. And then slowly, she would start talking to
Huey and Mizu, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the
the walls. She would do anything. It doesn't matter. She wouldn't feel her own pain of being beat. When Han got beat on the field, she would run and cover his body with her own. And it would just result in both of them getting beat. And her torture was, I mean, both of them were essayed during their time there, but it was just really bad. He says, I lived witnessing my sister gradually losing her mind. If she had been completely out of my sight, I might have forgotten her existence entirely. But because she was next to me,
Right, you
for
saw
3
it
years
all.
and 6 months, I witnessed everything, and I
It's
can't
almost
forget
worse
it.
that way. No, no.
Every time his sister would be in the field,
I didn't expect the alert to be like that. Sorry for the distraction. No, it's my alert. Don't worry. That's okay. We like that. We like the alert. Don't worry. It breaks up the the heaviness. Don't worry. But yeah, I want that. Yeah, follow me. Welcome in, by the way. You're great.
guards would laugh. The weirdo's coming again. She's starting again. And without fail, when Han would look, it would be his sister running towards him, trying to help him escape. And the guards that were laughing, 2 seconds ago, suddenly they yank her down by the hair as she rushes towards him, throws her onto the ground, and drags her away forcibly to torture her. Eventually, she was taken to the psych ward where Han would climb the window just to see her. There was a few platoon leaders that he liked, like the guards, where they were tall and they would let him climb on top of their shoulders to see in through the window just to see us.
Raccoons for president. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to New York City. I like your name a lot. It's really solid.
Sister. And he thought maybe if she sees my face, she'll get better and she won't lose her mind and she'll realize, okay, I gotta get out of here strong. But when he looks into
Of course,
the room,
Mizu.
she doesn't even recognize him because she is not there. They have her on they have her on antipsychotics that she does not need, on high doses every single day. She's in a daze. She just has a glaze. It's like they're zombies. That's how they describe them. He says, every time I went to check on my sister to see if she was ever getting better, she was always laying down with her hands tied. There was nothing I could do for my sister. All I could do every day was pray that my father would come and save us.
Oh my gosh.
He says his biggest regret was before she was taken to the psych ward, one of the leaders was beating his sister, the guard, and they told Han, I'm not going to stop until you repeat after me. Don't come find me, you stupid. And they would make Han repeat it over and over again because he wasn't saying it with conviction, obviously.
Right.
And he's just crying as he's screaming at his sister, and she's on the ground and she still tries to come save him the next day. Then one day, Han hears a voice that he recognizes behind him. Have you been well? And he freezes.
Jesus Christ.
He can't even turn around.
Who's running around
How's your
this?
sister doing?
Oh,
It's his dad.
fuck.
He's in a suit, tracksuit too.
Just like Jung's dad,
God
Han's
damn it.
dad is in a suit, a tracksuit.
Whole fucking family.
Han writes in his book, I tasted despair. I hated my father to death because he dropped them off at the police station.
Right. Yeah, he's the one who left them in the first place. Holy shit. Whoa.
And he was never particularly the best father even prior. He said the thought that I could never escape this place now tormented me. And now this man is wondering, how's your sister doing? Han scoffs. She's gone. She's no longer there. Seeing his dad, Han said he just had this overwhelming feeling. And these were the words that kept repeating in his mind while he was in the welfare center, which is, with a knife, with a knife. He didn't know what it meant. It was just always with a knife. I'm gonna do it with a knife, with a knife. The next time Han would ever see his dad outside of Brother's home, he would have a knife in his pocket, ready to kill him.
Yep.
That is part 2 of Squid Games, the real story behind Squid Games.
My God.
Part 3, we will tell you what happened to Han and Han's sister, Han's dad, as well as all the other victims who were outside of the National Assembly, and also the family who does not get punished and are in Australia living as millionaires. So stay tuned for part 3. Leave your thoughts in the comments and stay safe. I'll see you in the next one.
Wait, the people that were running it are still out? Like, they're fine? What? This is the real life Squid Game, right? Yeah, it is raccoons. Yeah, welcome in, guys. Jesus Christ. I can't wait for part 3. She put up part 2 really quickly, so maybe by next week we can watch it. I'm reminded of I know like Holocaust survivors. So like when like the Americans and whoever else came and like saved the Holocaust, like the people in the Holocaust or whatever, they brought all this food, right? Tons and tons of food for them to eat. And the prisoners were so hungry, they were all starved. They all started like scarfing down all the food, of course. And a lot of them died from like their stomachs basically exploding. Something she said earlier, like it reminded me of that, but I didn't want to cut it off to like make like a Holocaust like comparison. But that's just like a side note. But I guess I was thinking I was thinking like these people are out now. Like I'm wondering what freedom was like when it was over. Like, did they get some kind of like compensation or like help with housing or like anything? That's what I'm thinking. Like now, because you see they're out, right? But it doesn't necessarily look like they're living like kings or anything, right? So like I wonder what it was like when they finally got out. Yeah, you can't just eat normally after being starved long term. Yeah, of course. Yeah, you can die. A lot of the people in the Holocaust died. Like, we're just so sad. Like you're saved and just excited to eat and all this stuff, and then you end up dying. It's like, imagine. Yeah, man, that's part 2. Jesus Christ, man. So much of this stuff is like it has to be. They had clearly the people who did Squid Game like read the book. It's like got even the candy, the suits, everything clearly. But my God, dude. Yeah, man, that's part 2.